Well, I'm just about ready for bed, so why not make a video and hopefully someone actually makes use of it and finds it useful. So what we're going to be doing is using MakeHuman to create a pretty much just a first person mesh, and we're going to be doing some alterations to the armature and kind of rigging it up to where it's a little bit more useful. So that way the outcome is going to be something similar to this, which is the Insurgency Sandstorm uh, rig here that I used in a previous tutorial series for the Blender to Unreal Engine first person. So this should be similar to the outcome that we're going to get. So in order to get started, we're going to need to do a couple little things here. So first off, in the description, there will be a download to a compressed file, and this contains pretty much the plugins that we're going to need for Blender as well as MakeHuman. So you open this up, open up the folder, you're going to have a README. It's going to tell you exactly how to install it. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to install the MakeHuman plugin into the MakeHuman plugins folder. So go to your MakeHuman directory, plugins. You're going to take 9_export_MHX2 and just click and drag it in there like so. I've already done this, so I'm not going to. Then you need to go to your, at least for me, I'm on Windows 10. Go over here to our users, your username, app data, roaming, Blender Foundation, Blender, your version of Blender, scripts, add-ons, and you're going to drag import_runtime_MHX2 into here. Then once that's done, you can go ahead and launch Blender, and you'll go up here to Edit, Preferences. I don't know if this is still really required or not, but if you go to Save and Load, you can tick on Auto Run Python Scripts. Then we go over here to Add-ons, and the add-on is, oh, what's the thing called? MHX2. So if you search for MakeHuman, you will come up with this here. It'll be off by default. Simply check it, and you are good to go. It is now enabled. So you will notice one thing though, when you go to import, there's no import format for MHX2. What you do is you press N, and you'll have a little tab over here where you can import from there. This is where we're going to import our MakeHuman model. So let's go ahead and launch MakeHuman. Right, so I'm going to make some quick little changes. Trying to remember. Okay, there's the controls. Going to make them fully male, fully Caucasian, full muscle mass, and let's crank up the weight to give them a little bit of size. So I'm going to go a little bit smaller, just going based off of the arm size. And I'd say I'm happy with that. So once you've adjusted your character accordingly, however you want, we're going to go over here to Materials. Now from here, you can select whichever one you want. I like the young Caucasian male too. In my opinion, it just looks the most natural. Then we're going to go over to Pose/Animate and select the rig that you want. In my case, I want the game engine because it's one I'm going to be working with. It's simple enough. I can just delete a few bones and I'm done. So I select game engine, go over here to File, Export, going to select MakeHuman Exchange, MHX2, and we're going to choose a path. Now I've already made a folder for this. I'm going to delete the textures folder. I'm just going to call it MakeHuman Mesh and export it. Okay, so now go to that folder. Can ignore my FPS version. Here's what we're met with. So go over to Blender. I'm going to press A, X to delete everything in the scene. I'm going to go to Import MHX2. I'm going to go back to that path and select it and import. Now here's what we're met with. and it looks quite nice, and it's already somewhat set up, ready to go. So in pose mode, you rotate, but you can't really move the wrist around. So when you press G, it just rotates it. Well, that's because if we go over here, the locations are locked. So we unlock it, we can move it, but we don't have any sort of reverse kinematics set up to move the remaining parts of the arm. And that's what we're going to be working on here. So I'm going to press 1 to go in this front view, 1 on the number pad. I get rid of this as I'm not going to be doing any sort of animation. We're going to be clearing out the mesh. So let's go back to object mode, select the mesh, go to edit mode, and we're going to be deleting a lot of vertices. So I want to make sure vertex select is on up here, and X-ray is enabled as well. So now all we're going to do is simply select the areas of the mesh that we do not want in our setup pretty much. Also, one thing we can do, we have eyeballs here. We don't need them, we're not having an eye. So what we can do is we can go over here to MakeHuman Mesh, and we'll have this MakeHuman Mesh.highPoly. Just right click, delete, and it gets rid of the eyeballs. Okay, now let's go ahead and continue. Just go through, keep kind of deleting basic stuff. Right, we go to face select, toggle off X-ray, and just do some very quick cleanup work. I'm just trying to go about this as quickly as possible. I'm not worrying about it all that much, because obviously there is a lot more that can really be done to ensure that this is nice and cleaned up. Right, so I want to stop with the arm on that one. Work on this one real quick. Feel like it went a little far. And I believe there's a little edge right here, so we're gonna have to make sure to go through and delete that. And let's see, get rid of. Yeah, I want to call it and say that that's pretty good. And fairly symmetrical. I'm just going to go ahead and save this blend file real quick in case something just happens to break. Okay, so now we have that set up. So now go back into, actually I need to get rid of that edge. So right here, and there we go. So back into object mode, we can go ahead and start working on our armature. So I want to get a rough scale for this. So in order to do that, I need to bring in the mannequin to kind of just get a judgment. So I'm going to take my MakeHuman mesh, click and drag them into collection, like so. So it's out of the way. Then we go to File, Import. I just have the mannequin already set up. And as you can see, the scaling is way too big. So we're going to need to bring that down quite a bit. So what we're going to do is select the armature here. Just press S. I'm going to press Shift Tab, and it will snapping for the increment on rotation and scale, just so it snaps like so. And I'd say that's actually pretty decent for the arms. So I'm happy with that size right there. So if you want to judge that, pretty much just set the scale to 0.1 and you're roughly in line with the scale of the mannequin. So now what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and delete some of these bones. So with the armature selected, I'm going to go into edit mode, select both leg bones, press X and delete the bones. I can't see any reason for now to have the spine, so I'm going to do the same thing to that. Same thing for the neck and head because we do not have one. And that is all that I want to delete. So now, one thing that we're going to have to do, let me go ahead and view an example real quick. Open up the character. Okay. So this little point right here, when I click on the mesh of the first person, this little point is the origin point. And that origin point is essentially what's getting attached to the camera in the perfect location. So when you're trying to build, like a first person rig or something that's going to have a camera attached to it in a specific spot, this is roughly, in my opinion, a really good way to go about it. So this little origin point right here, that is the root. So this is our root bone currently way down here. So if we were to import this right into UE4 and set it up the same way, it would be looking kind of like this because our root or slash origin point is way below our actual mesh. So in order to solve that, go back to edit mode, go into front view with pressing 1 on the number pad, and just drag it down kind of about like so. So it's below the red line. I'm going to go to edit mode, select the root, and drag the root up to the world origin or the exact center like so. Then I'm going to press 3 on the number pad on the side view, and I'm going to drag it back just a little bit. So that way, I'm just going to do a little adjustment. Close enough. So that way the root is positioned at the world center. So whenever we go to attach it, it will attach just like this mesh here to the camera. So now if we press in, I click on the armature and object mode, see it's the location and everything's offset. We're going to go to press Control A and apply all transforms. Then we select the mesh, Control A, all transforms again. And now we have our basic first person kind of setup. But we don't have any sort of rigging or anything like that to really move the arms kind of how we would want them to actually animate with. So that's what we are going to do. Well, I guess there's no sense in making another video, so I'll just do it now. So in order to do that, I'm going to select the armature. We're going to go over here to edit mode. So I know I want to have controls for the hands, pull target back here to control the elbows, and we can make another one for the shoulder, but I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. We're just going to do the hands and the pull target for the elbows. So to do that, I want to select this little point right here. So if I go over here to my, what's this called? Bone properties, you can see what bone is selected. So this is the hand left. This is the lower arm left. So I want to select that little point between them on the left arm and hold down shift and left click the same point on the right arm. I want to press 1 to go into front view, and I want to press E to extrude. And I'm just going to pretty much create new bones going straight up. And this is going to be our controller for our hands. So we can go ahead and name them. So I want to select this one on the left hand. And I'm going to give it a, let's see, what's this hand called? Hand_L. So I'm going to select our new bone. I'm going to call it IK_and_L. Do the same thing for the right hand, or the right for inverse kinematics. So IK_and_R for right. Now we need to set up the actual inverse kinematics. So actually one thing we can do is we can align it up a little bit better so it follows with the hand. So I'm going to click the top of our left hand bone, and I'm going to try to angle it with by pressing R to rotate, roughly in line with the hand, kind of like so. I want to go into side view with 3. I can see that it needs to come this way quite a bit, and go back and rotate it further again, and just kind of get it roughly like so. So that way it's kind of in this rough direction of the hand. And I'm going to do the same exact thing for the other hand. So, close enough. So now we can set up the inverse kinematics. So going back, going to pose mode. Actually, one thing, go back to edit mode. I'm going to select the hand underscore L, then shift select IK hand underscore L. I want to press Control P, keep offset. Then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Control P, keep offset. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to pose mode. Going to select the lower arm. Going to go to bone constraint properties. Going to add a inverse kinematic property. Target, I'm just going to use the eyedropper. Select the armature. And for the bone, we're going to select this here, the IK underscore hand underscore L. Just like so. And you'll see this line has been created from this point all the way up to the root. That's our chain. So our chain length being set to 0, it's going to go all the way up the path until it finds our root. So what we want to do is we want to go to chain length 1, chain length 2, chain length 3. I want to go to chain length 2 so that way it only affects the arm. Okay. Now we can do the exact same thing for the other side. So select the lower arm. Again, exact same thing, but for the right hand. And a pull target of 2. So now we select this right hand. Remember, I'm pressing G and it's only rotating, it's not actually moving. We need to press N. Let's see here. I'm going to select the hand. Let's see. Yes, I'm going to select the hand and unlock the location for both the left and the right hand. And we are still having some issues. So let's see what exactly that problem is. So I'm going to go back to edit mode. I want to select the inverse kinematic on the hand. I'm going to press Alt P. I'm actually going to clear the parent for both of them. Now back into pose mode, click the hand, and there we go. So yeah, the reason for that was, can we actually leave this locked? Yes, we can. So I guess it doesn't actually matter. So now we have inverse kinematics set up for our hands purely based off of, this one little part here. And I want to be organizing these into pose layers here in a minute. So that is another thing that I find very, very useful. So that way I only expose parts that I actually want to use and visualize, such as I would have all the fingers, this little target here, the pull target for the elbows, and same thing for the moving the shoulders. Those would be the only real things that I would have visible because those are only things I need. But now what we need to do is we need to create a pull target for our elbows. So the way we can do that, go back into edit mode, click this little joint here where the elbow is. It's not always going to highlight, but you can tell it is by it's going to say the upper arm underscore L. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here for the other side. We'll press 3 to go into side view and press E to extrude. I'm going to go like so. So now we have these little bones pointing straight out at the back, and these are going to be our pull targets. So what we can do is we can click Alt P, clear the parent, Same thing for the other side. Alt P, clear the parent. I'm going to go back into side view with both of them selected. And I'm going to move them back away from the body. So now, let's go back into pose mode. I'm going to select the inverse kinematic, the lower arm. Go back to the object data properties, or bone constraint properties, sorry. And for pole target, we're going to select that little guy, our armature again. Actually, let's give these a name real quick. So if we click on the bone, go to bone properties, we can rename it. So I'm going to give this one pole target. So elbow, or do pole underscore elbow underscore L. And the right arm is going to be pole underscore elbow underscore R. All right, let's go back to our properties. And for the bone, let's see, search for the P, pole elbow left. There we go. And you can see, kind of rotated it all funky. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the pole angle. So I want to go in a negative direction and then bring it to about normal. It's going to be like negative. Let's do negative 90. And obviously there's better ways to do this. So that way you actually have a zeroed out pole angle. But for now, this is all we really have to do. So I want to do the exact same thing on the other side. And select the pole underscore elbow underscore R. And again, negative 90. So now, let me give this an example. Let's say I move this arm over here, up here and stuff. You know, the arm pretty much is just like the elbow is just bent straight out. What if I wanted to come out at an angle? All I do is select this pose target and I drag it out. You can see it's rotating the arm slash elbow kind of however we want. So this is very useful when you're doing things like trying to get a pose for, holding a rifle or something like that. It can help really clean it up. And that's where things like doing something similar for the shoulders comes into play. Because you can move this shoulder, forward, this shoulder back, vice versa, and all that kind of stuff to get really kind of the pose that you want. So now that we have that done, we can work on our pose layers. So that way we can really kind of clean this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the bones that we actually want to use for our animation. So that's going to be all of the fingers, our inverse kinematic bones for our hands. By the way, I'm selecting by holding down left shift and just clicking and dragging over top. And our pole targets. And I guess the root. Now we don't need to see the root. So once we have all those, the bones that we want selected or just to be visible for us when we're animating, we just go over here to pose, go down to change bone layers. I'm going to select the second layer, like so. As you can see, all the ones we had selected just magically vanished. That's because they're in this second layer right here. So if I click this, the only ones we see are the bones for like our fingers, so we can rotate our fingers all around, move the hand around, adjust the angle of the arm, all that kind of stuff. And then if we wanted to go back, make some changes or whatever, we can, or we can shift select both and bring everything back to normal. So this is pretty much our rig setup. So now we can go ahead and import this into Unreal Engine and just kind of see the result, as well as the actual texture. I'm going to select the mesh, then the armature. I'm going to go file export as FBX. I'm just going to go to my desktop, tutorial FPS mesh. That's just going to be what I'm going to name it. I'm going to go to selected objects. I'm going to scroll down here to geometry. Smoothing is going to be face. I want to uncheck bake animation, even though we don't have any. When I open the Armature tab, uncheck add leaf bones, and check only deform bones, and export as FBX. So now I'll make a new folder. Right, no spaces. I'm deleting this project anyway, so it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and import. It was called tutorial mesh FPS or whatever. Just open it and press import. And here we have it. So let's look at our skeleton. Everything is set up all the same, except for we have a slight issue. Root is not the root of our hierarchy. It's MakeHuman mesh. Now I wanted to use this as an example for naming. So I'll just actually show you. I'll leave that up. If we go back here into Blender, we drop all this down. So we have our root bone here. This is essentially our root. But this is kind of like our armature. So if I was to rename this right here to armature with capital A, like so, and then export again, remember this is our root MakeHuman mesh. Let me go ahead and just delete these so it's a completely new import. Let me re-import. Oops. What's the issue? Multiple roots. I kind of disagree, but yes, there are multiple roots. So that's one thing we need to fix. But the reason it's saying multiple roots is because MakeHuman mesh, which is what this little thing here was named before, is now armature. And Unreal Engine completely ignores parts that say armature. So that way, root is now, quote unquote, our root bone. But the problem we have is we have IK hand, left, right, and our pull targets outside of the root. So it's saying this is our root, this is a root, this is a root, this is a root, and this is a root. Well, we can only have one root. So let's fix that. We're going to select our armature, go back to edit mode, and I need to view the root bone. So I'm going to select the first layer with shift select. I'm going to select the pull target for the left and right side. And same thing with the hands, are their inverse kinematics. So all these except for the root are selected. Then last, I'm going to select the root. Again, I'm shift selecting, press Control P, keep offset. Now you can see they all just got thrown into the root. So now, if I select the mesh, then the armature, and I export again and import it into Unreal Engine, we view the skeleton. Voila! We have our root set up properly. As you can see, he does its thing. And we still have kind of like our, our pull targets, all that kind of stuff. Our hand, it all kind of works similar to how it does in Blender. So that's great. But he's all, straight, literally just straight white. Well, remember that texture that we got? Let me find it. When we exported from MakeHuman, we have a folder called textures. And we have this one specifically, young, light skin, whatever you called, whichever one you selected. I'm going to delete the eyes, which are very creepy to look at. Well, we can make a material off of this. So let's go ahead and click and drag that texture into Unreal Engine. Then from here, we already have a material. Let's just open that up. We're going to delete the param. We're going to drag in that texture we just imported, like so. Connect the RGB to the base color and hit save. Okay, so now when I view the mesh, you can see he's actually got the skin color just like he did inside of MakeHuman, fingernails and all that. So we now have, semi-decent looking. Obviously, you can texture this yourself and make it look better kind of however you want it because we're just dealing with a base color right now. So, but yeah, we have a full-on skeleton already set up, as well as we have some very basic controls, which you can obviously expand on to pretty much just make your own custom rig, suit, whatever it is you're after. So this, for example, would be pretty decent for first-person shooters. I would add a couple things, such as those portions for the shoulders, so that way I can move the shoulder forwards or backwards. Same thing with this one. And I would add a single pivot point for the spine, so that way if you're trying to lean, such as peek around a corner, you can do so, purely based off of that spine. So all this kind of stuff would be parented to the spine, for example, and then that spine would be parented to the root or something like that. I haven't actually done that, but that's just kind of my thoughts. So yeah, hopefully, I feel like this has probably been a little bit long. Oh yeah, 30 minutes of just straight my voice. I'm sorry, but hopefully, learned something and found this useful. If you're looking for anything else, kind of working between Unreal Engine and Blender to make transitions a little bit smoother, or you're having some trouble with something, feel free to, either post the question in the comments or go to the link in the description for my Discord. And I have help channels posted out there. So, yeah, hopefully you found this useful. And, well, I don't know what video is going to post next, but probably the Nazi Zombie series. So, I'll see you then.